Part 1. The Rain That Brought Him Back. The rain was falling gently on the streets, making everything look soft and shiny. Mira sat by the window of a small cafe, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. She wasn't really there for the coffee. She was waiting for someone she wasn't even sure would come. She looked outside, watching the people run for shelter. Some held colorful umbrellas, others just laughed and danced in the rain. Mira smiled sadly. Once, she too had loved the rain. Now, it just made her feel lonely. The little bell above the cafe door rang, and she turned without much hope. But when she saw him, her heart stopped. There he was, Arav. His hair was dripping wet, his shirt sticking to him, and yet, when he smiled at her, the whole world faded away. Arav walked quickly to her table, looking a little embarrassed. "I'm late," he said, slightly out of breath, "but I had to see you." Mira crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. "Maybe next time you should bring an umbrella and a clock." Arav laughed, the same warm laugh she remembered from years ago. It broke the tension between them like sunlight breaking through clouds. He sat down, wiping water from his face with a napkin. "You look exactly the same," he said softly. "And you look like a drowned cat," Mira teased, but there was a soft smile playing on her lips now. For a few minutes they just sat there, smiling awkwardly, the rain filling the silence between them. But it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was full of memories, memories that neither of them dared to touch just yet. Finally, Arav spoke. His voice was different now, deeper and more serious, but still familiar. "I've missed you, Mira." Mira looked down at her cup, afraid that if she looked into his eyes, she would start crying. "You left," she whispered. "You moved away and life just went on." Arav leaned forward. "It went on, but not really. Not without you." Mira felt a lump in her throat. She remembered all the birthdays she spent wishing he would call. All the times she picked up the phone but didn't know what to say. She remembered the pain of losing her best friend, and maybe something more. "You never wrote," she said, her voice trembling. "I tried," Arav said quickly. "I wrote letters I never sent. I made calls I never finished. Every time I tried, I felt scared. Scared that you had moved on. Scared that you didn't need me anymore." Mira looked up at him then, and for a moment, all the hurt, all the years, melted away. He was still Arav. Her Arav. "You idiot," she said, laughing through her tears. "I waited for you." Arav reached out across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Mira," he said in a low, aching voice. "It was always you." And just like that, all the walls Mira had built around her heart came crashing down. Part 2. Memories that never left. The rain outside had slowed to a soft drizzle, like the world was listening quietly to their conversation. Arav stood up and held out his hand to Mira. "Come," he said. "Walk with me." Mira hesitated for a second, then smiled and placed her hand in his. His hand was warm, strong, and familiar, just like she remembered. They stepped outside into the soft rain. It wasn't heavy enough to drench them, just enough to make the world around them feel fresh and new. They walked side by side down the narrow street, past old shops and parks that held 100 memories. "Do you remember that tree?" Arav pointed to a large banyan tree near the park entrance. Mira laughed softly. "How could I forget? You climbed it to impress me and fell flat on your face." Arav grinned, touching the scar on his chin. "Still have the scar to prove it." Mira blinked away the tears that threatened to spill. "You were all I ever wanted," she whispered. The rain fell around them, but neither noticed. They were lost in each other's eyes, speaking without words. The years of silence, of loneliness, of missed chances, it all hung in the air between them. "I tried to forget you," Mira admitted. "I tried to move on." Arav nodded, pain flashing across his face. Me too. There was a long pause. Cars passed by, people laughed in the distance, but in their world, it was just the two of them. But no matter where I went, Arav said softly, no matter who I met, it was always you, Mira. Always. Mira felt her heart breaking and healing at the same time. She stepped closer, so close that she could feel his breath on her skin. You broke my heart, she said, her voice trembling. And yet, it still beats for you. Arav closed his eyes for a moment, as if in pain. When he opened them, they were full of tears. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Maybe not, Mira said, a tear slipping down her cheek. But you have me. You always have. Without thinking, Arav reached up and wiped her tear with his thumb. His touch was feather-light, trembling, like he was afraid she might disappear. Can I hold you? He asked, his voice cracking. Instead of answering, Mira stepped into his arms. He held her tightly, like she was something precious he had almost lost forever. She buried her face in his chest, feeling his heart race just like hers. For a long time, they stood there in the rain, holding each other, letting the past wash away. The world around them blurred, the people, the sounds, even the rain. There was only the sound of two hearts finding their way back to each other. When they finally pulled apart, Arav cupped her face in his hands. His forehead touched hers. I'm never letting you go again, he said, his voice fierce and full of promise. You better not, Mira said, smiling through her tears. And right there, under the soft rain and fading grey sky, Arav leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was gentle, slow, full of all the love, apologies, and promises they couldn't say out loud. Undefined. They both laughed, and for a moment, it felt like no time had passed. The years melted away, and they were just two kids again, teasing and chasing each other through the streets. I used to wait for you every evening, Mira said quietly. After homework, I would sit by my window, hoping you would come calling my name. I came as often as I could, Arav said. His voice was thick with emotion. But you were always faster than me at homework. They smiled, remembering the silly races, the stolen glances, the shy smiles. But soon the laughter faded, and there was only the heavy feeling of everything left unsaid. Why didn't you fight for me? Mira finally asked. Her voice was small, almost scared of the answer. Arav stopped walking. He turned to face her fully. Because I thought you deserved better, he said. I was just a scared, stupid boy who didn't know how to hold on to the most important person in his life. Part 3. Dreams We Forgot. After the kiss, they stayed close, not wanting to lose the feeling that had just been found again. The rain had finally stopped, and a golden light was spreading across the sky. The world smelled fresh, like a new beginning. Arav took Mira's hand again, their fingers fitting together naturally. Come with me, he said, his eyes sparkling. They walked down the street, past the old bookstore where they used to sit on the floor, reading comics. Past the sweet shop where Arav once spent all his pocket money just to buy Mira her favorite chocolates. Finally, they reached their old school. It looked smaller now, faded, but still full of memories. The gates were locked, but the swings in the park next door were still there, moving gently in the breeze. Mira laughed and ran to a swing, sitting on it like she was a child again. Arav smiled and pushed her lightly, sending her flying forward. You used to push me higher, Mira said, her voice playful. Mira thought for a moment. I dreamed of small things, she said. A little house with plants on the balcony. Sunday mornings with pancakes. Someone who would make me laugh when the world got too heavy. Arav smiled. I dreamed of big things, he said. Becoming someone important. Making enough money to give my family everything they never had. Traveling the world. And did you? Mira asked. Arav shrugged. I traveled. I earned. I built things. But every sunset in a new city, every success, felt empty. Because I wasn't sharing it with you. Mira reached over and squeezed his hand. What about you? Arav asked. Did you find someone? Mira shook her head. I met people. Nice ones. Funny ones. But they weren't you. Arav looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. And you were the part of me that nothing else could replace. The streetlights were starting to glow now, soft yellow lights blinking to life one by one. The night air was cool and sweet. I'm scared, Mira admitted suddenly. Scared that we've changed too much. Arav turned toward her, his voice firm and gentle. Then let's change together. Mira looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't the boy who had promised her lollipops and laughter anymore. He was a man, with sadness in his eyes but hope in his heart. And she wasn't the shy girl who waited by the window anymore. She was stronger now. She had survived heartbreak and loneliness. Maybe they had both changed, but maybe the important parts were still the same. She stood up from the swing and held out her hand. Okay, she said, smiling through the tears. Let's start again. Arav took her hand, standing up. No, he said, pulling her closer. Let's continue. We never really ended, Mira. We just paused. The stars were coming out, tiny silver dots scattered across the deep blue sky. The town around them was sleeping, but for Mira and Arav, the night was just beginning. Hand in hand, they walked down the quiet street, hearts lighter than they had been in years. This time, they weren't going to let go. Not ever again. Undefined. I was scared you'd fly away, Arav teased. She turned her head to look at him. I almost did. Arav stopped the swing and stood in front of her, serious now. I know, he said, and it's my fault. Mira looked up at him, waiting. I was afraid, he said slowly. Afraid of loving you too much. Afraid of not being enough. So when my father got transferred, I let distance do what I was too weak to fight. Mira touched his hand gently. You were just a boy. And now I'm a man, Arav said. A man who knows that nothing is scarier than living without you. Mira felt tears sting her eyes again, but this time they were tears of hope. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe some broken things could still be fixed. They sat on the swing side by side, letting the silence between them grow soft and safe. What did you dream about? Arav asked after a while. When we were apart? Part 4. Promises Under the Stars. As they walked together under the quiet night sky, Arav suddenly stopped. Wait here, he said with a mysterious smile, then ran down a side street. Mira watched him disappear into the darkness, her heart thudding with curiosity. The night air wrapped around her like a soft blanket, and for the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. A few minutes later, Arav came back, hiding something behind his back. He looked like a little boy again, excited and nervous at the same time. What are you hiding? Mira asked, smiling. Arav brought his hands forward, and in them was a small, colorful kite, bright blue with golden stars painted on it. Mira gasped. Our kite! Arav laughed. Well, not the same one, but close enough. Remember? You and I tried to fly one every year, and every year it crashed within minutes. Mira laughed too, covering her mouth with her hand. Because you never read the instructions. We rise, we fall, we twist, but we still fly, he said, his voice thick with emotion. She blinked away the tears. Even after everything, we're still here. Arav nodded. Still here, still us. They sat down on the grass, side by side, watching the kite soar. Above them, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to their story. After a while, Arav spoke again. Mira, I don't want just memories with you. I want mornings and nights, fights and laughter, silences and songs. I want it all. Mira's heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. I want a home with you, Arav continued, his voice shaking. I want to argue over silly things like what color to paint the kitchen. I want to dance with you in the living room at midnight. I want to watch you grow old and still think you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Tears rolled down Mira's cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. I'm scared, she whispered. What if we hurt each other again? We probably will, Arav said, his voice honest. But I'll stay. Every time. I'll fight for you, Mira. I'll choose you. Always. She looked at him, really looked. The boy she loved, the man he had become, the heart that had always been hers. I don't need perfect, Mira said softly. I just need you. And under the endless stars, sitting on the wet grass with muddy shoes and tear-stained cheeks, they made a new promise. Not the careless promises of childhood, but a real one, deep and true. A promise to stay, a promise to fight, a promise to fly together, even if the wind tried to break them. The kite above them dipped slightly in the breeze, but held strong, just like them. As the night grew colder, Arav wrapped his arm around Mira, and she leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat there in silence, their hearts speaking louder than words ever could. Tomorrow would come, full of unknowns. But tonight, they had found their way back. And that was enough. Undefined. And because you always wanted the biggest kite you could find, Arav added. They laughed together, the kind of deep, helpless laughter that only old friends and first loves could share. Arav held up the kite. Tonight, we'll fly it together, and this time we won't crash. They walked to a nearby open field, a place they used to visit during festivals. The grass was a little wet, and their shoes got muddy, but neither cared. Arav carefully unrolled the string and held the kite up. Mira grabbed the spool and ran forward, laughing breathlessly. The kite shook in the air, wobbling at first, but then, slowly, it rose, higher and higher, until it danced against the stars. They both cheered like kids, their laughter echoing across the empty field. As Mira watched the kite flying freely, she felt something inside her open up. Something that had been closed for too long. This kite, Arav said softly, is us. Mira turned to him, her eyes shining. Part 5. Home is you. The next morning, sunlight poured through Mira's window, waking her gently. She sat up, smiling without even realizing it. Last night felt like a dream, but the ache in her cheeks from smiling too much told her it was real. There was a knock on her door. She hurried to open it, and there was Arav, holding 2 cups of coffee and a brown paper bag. Breakfast delivery, he said with a grin. Mira laughed. Is it burnt toast? Excuse me, Arav said, pretending to be offended. I'll have you know I bought the finest sandwiches money can buy. She pulled him inside, and they sat on the floor, eating and laughing like they had done so many years ago. Halfway through, Arav grew serious. He put down his coffee and looked at her. I meant what I said last night, he said. I don't want to waste any more time. Mira nodded, feeling her heart speed up. I know we have work, families, responsibilities, he continued, but I want us to build a life together. Later that day, they went to their favorite hilltop, the one they used to climb as teenagers when they wanted to feel above the world. They sat there, the town spread out below them, the sky stretching forever above them. Let's promise something, Mira said, resting her head on Arav's shoulder. Anything, he said. No matter how busy we get, she said, no matter how crazy life becomes, we'll always find our way back here, to each other. Arav kissed her forehead. Always, he said. The wind played with their hair, the grass tickled their toes, and somewhere far away, a kite danced in the sky. They had lost years, they had made mistakes, but love had waited, love had survived, love had found its way home, and now, so had they. Because sometimes, the people meant for us don't leave forever. They just find their way back when the time is right. And sometimes, love stories don't end. They just begin again. The end.